Okay, so today we're going to be talking about slope and our review for a slope before we take a test on it. So we can get slope from a variety of different linear functions, but the idea here is basically it has to form a line. Now, that line can be a diagonal going up, that can be a diagonal going down, it can be a flat horizontal line, it can be a vertical line, it can come in the form of a table, it can come in the form of just some ordered pairs. There's lots of different ways or different things we can get slope from. So, you got to remember slope, dude, right? But slope is basically the ratio between what's happening vertically and what's happening horizontally. So it's usually expressed as like what we call the rise over the run, or the change in y over the change in x, are basically what we usually refer to the slope as. And it's usually a fraction of some kind, right? Because we're just figuring out basically what changed between those two things. Now remember, guys, if it is going downhill from left to right, that should be a negative slope. And remember the slope, dude. Negative slope, nice negative. It's going downhill, right? So before I even start figuring out the slope, I know it should be a negative number in the end. Now to figure out the slope, I just count between the 2 points that are given to me. This one is 1, 2, 3 over. That would be my run. And this one is down 1. Down is a negative direction, so I'm going to call that negative 1. So, to put it in slope, it's always the rise over the run, or the change in y over the change in x. This is the rise, right? So negative 1 would go on top, and then this is the run, so that's going to go on the bottom. It'd be negative 1 over 3. Okay, this one is going downhill as well, so it should be negative. It's going over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and going downhill 2. So its slope would be negative 2 over 5. And again, if this is too quick or anything for you guys, you can always pause or rewind and come back and watch it again. The video is not going anywhere. This one is also going downhill, so it should also be negative slope. It's going over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 between those 2 points, and it's going down 1, so minus 1. So its slope would be negative 1 over 8. Okay, this one's going uphill, so it should be a positive fraction, right? It's puff, puff, positive. So it's going up 1, 2, and it's going over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so the up and down goes on top, so 2, and then it's going over 5. Okay, not too bad, right? This one is going uphill, so it should also be positive. So it is going up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, going over 1. That would be 6 over 1. Or you could just write that as 6. It doesn't really matter which. Okay? And this last one is a vertical line. That's where Slope Dude fell off the cliff, right? And shouted the worst curse word in all of math. Undefined. Because basically all it's saying, it's undefined because this run is 0, right? It's not going left or right, so it'd be 0. And if that happens, you can't divide anything by 0, right? Let's just try it. If I do, let's say 9 divided by 0, I get an error. It's not possible, right? You can't divide anything by 0. Okay, down here. We're going to figure out what's happening between these. This is a table, right? So now we're trying to figure out the change in y just by counting or figuring out. So you could do like 39 minus 18, and that would give you how much it added by, which is 21. Or you could look at some of these other 60 to 80, 21 obviously. Doesn't really matter where you get it from. And then 0 to negative 7 is obviously subtracting 7. So the change in y would be 21. That would go on top. Change in x is negative 7. Now that is the slope, and it is correct, but it will be marked wrong on your test. And the reason for that is this can be simplified. If you're ever not sure if something can be simplified, you have this handy-dandy fraction button right there. It's the block over a block. So if I do 21 fraction button negative 7, calculator will do the simplifying for me. It's negative 3. So negative 3 or negative 3 over 1 would be the correct slope, and that's the one that you need to have. So make sure you are checking your slopes to make sure they are simplified. Okay, this one is going down 2 on the y. It's going down 4 on the x. 19 to 17, down 2. 9 to 5, down 4. So change in y is negative 2. Change in x is negative 4. Again, this would be wrong, even though it's technically what's happening, because it can simplify. It can simplify to 1 over 2. And again, you can check that. Negative 2, fraction button, negative 4. You get 1 over 2. 1 over 2 is the correct answer. The most correct answer. Now this one, the y's are not changing at all. If it's not changing at all, it's like adding 0, right? So there's no change on the y. And then 0 to 5, you're adding 5. Okay? So it would be like 0 over 5. Now again, this isn't right, because 0 divided by any number is actually just 0. And this is a horizontal line, because basically the y's aren't changing, which makes it horizontal. Okay? Let's go through and do a couple more quick ones here. So here we have the Uber and the Lyft rates here. So Uber is $2.50 per mile. So at 0, you're not charged at all. So let's say this is miles and this is cost. Miles, cost. So at 1 mile, you'd be charged $2.50. At 2 miles, you'd be charged 5, right? You're just adding $2.50 each time. 3 miles would be $7.50. 4 miles, it would be $10. Okay? Now, same thing with Lyft 00. It says $10 for every 5 miles, though, here, right? So at 1 mile, I don't know what it costs. At 2, I don't know. 3, I don't know. 4, I don't know. And then finally, when we get to 5, I finally know it's $10, right? Now to figure out what it would cost at $1, you basically just take what you know, $10 per 5 miles. So 10 divided by 5 should give me my unit rate, which is 2 over 1, or 2 per 1 mile. And that's not too hard to count up by, right? 2, go up to 4 after 2 miles, 6 after 3, and 8 after 4, 10 at 5. Okay? Then unit rate, Uber's was $2.50 per mile, right? Lyft's, we figured out, was 2, which means Lyft has the better rate, right? Because it's cheaper per mile. Cheaper per mile. Okay? And then again, to graph these, you basically just graph these order pairs. So like Uber was 00, and then 1, $2.50. 2 was 5, 3 was 7.5, and 4 was 10. There's my Uber, right there. Okay, then Lyft was 00, and then 1, 2, 2, 4, 3, 6, 4, 8, 5, 10. If we look at Uber's line, it starts getting further and further apart the further away we go, right? Because it's cheaper. Now this last part, this is the part that you guys struggle with the most. And this is basically also one of the easier ones. So basically you just take your two coordinates. You have x and y, right? X and y. I'm going to call these 1 and these 2. It doesn't really matter what you call which. But basically to find the slope from 2 points, you take y1 minus y2, and you put that over x1 minus x2. Okay, because again it's the change in y over the change in x. So like here on 14, it'd be 2 minus 8 over 10 minus 14, which when you simplify would be negative 6 over negative 4, which again I can simplify even more to 3 over 2. And that would be my final answer there. Okay, not too tough, right? This one, I have negative 12 minus 8 over 7 minus 12. Negative 12 minus 8 is negative 20. 7 minus 12 is negative 5, and that would simplify to 4, or 4 over 1. Okay, again, not too tough. Let's see, this one, I would do 10 minus a negative 20 over negative 11 minus 19. 10 minus a negative, same sign, add and keep, right? That's going to end up being positive 30, because when you have two negatives next to each other, you just end up adding them. And then negative 11 minus 19 would be negative 30, means it's all going to simplify down to -1, or -1 over 1. And then this last one, you'd have 8 minus 6 over 5 minus 5, which would be 2 over 0, which simplifies down to undefined, because you can't divide by 0. That's a vertical line between those 2 points. And I know the lights went out, so you got to see the creepy me in the bottom corner for the last little bit. But if you guys have any questions, ask your teachers. We're here to help. We want to help. And I'll see you guys out there.